This podcast is intended for mature audiences and contains adult language and subject matter. Listeners, please be advised.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another stunning edition of Drinking with Your Ex. I am Blake Thompson.
And I am Bonnie Neal, and welcome back. We have a fun episode planned for you, but we're going to go through the rules and get right into it.
For our glorious listeners out in the world that are tuning in, we have 3 rules.
3 rules.
Rule number 1, each episode is inspired by some type of booze or cocktail.
That kind of, really goes with, it's a perfect accoutrement with the topic at hand. The second rule is that each one of us gets to introduce the other to the world, thus engaging the fun edge play of having your ex introduce you to the world.
Absolutely. And other poor decisions you can make.
Exactly. And our third rule is that
each one of us gets to ask an uncomfortable question of the other based on tonight's topic. But we have a bonus for you tonight.
We have a total bonus for you tonight. We have decided to speed up the rounds because tonight's topic is sex and dating through the decade.
You've arrived at your 40s, but we're going to start at your teens and work our way up.
Yeah, we are essentially going to go be ghosts of sex lives past for each other. We're going to go through each decade of our dating and sexual life, starting with the teens, the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s. And we are going to, frankly, kind of interview the other one and ask questions, which means we get to ask kind of uncomfortable questions for every decade. This is going to be fun, guys.
And we're breaking down each decade with 3 uncomfortable questions along with our ready repartee that we'll be having.
It's true. So do we want to tell them what the 3 questions are, or just let them discover it on their own?
Well, I don't know. Let's give you all a heads up since you've been so nicely tuning into us. Question number 1.
What were you drinking?
Ooh, that could get dicey. Question number 2.
Who were you dating? And question number 3 is, how were you fucking? Remember, kids, this is not for you. This is definitely explicit, mature audiences only.
The thing is, though, all 3 of these questions, depending on the decade, can be really uncomfortable. As always, our side rule, we have follow-up questions for the follow-up drink if we don't feel the question was answered just quite to our liking.
It's true. We're kind of basically staring at each other and being like, oh, really? You going to puss out on that one? Uh-huh. I would like to ask a follow-up question, please. So this is going to be fun. All right, so, okay. Rule number 1, tonight's episode is brought to you by
White Claw.
Which, frankly, is the millennial calorie-conscious version of Bartles and James and Boone's Farm. Which, if you were, sexually active in the 90s and early 2000s, was kind of, essentially White Claw. Although, to be fair, I think those malt liquor choices had a lot more flavor than White Claw, because White Claw is essentially like drinking the white noise from the television and having somebody yell the name of a fruit from another room. That's what it's like. But hey, we'll accept their sponsorship anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
But yes, tonight's episode is brought to you by White Claw. You're welcome.
Yes, and now the fun part, introduction.
Oh God, I had a really good one for you, and I just kind of blanked out on it. You go first, Blake.
Well, let me introduce my ex, Bonnie Neal. Bonnie Neal, who looks at flirting as a contact sport and also may kneecap you if you try to drink the last of the Evan Williams at the bar. Just fair warning, fellas. Choose your liquors wisely.
Interesting. Okay, I don't know why you make me sound so violent. When have I ever kneecapped
For
you
anybody
directly?
that's listened to this podcast and she's asking that question, we should follow up with uncomfortable questions.
Come
early
on. I'm Daisy. I'm so gentle and kind. All right, well, fine. Okay, whatever. All right, I remembered it. I'm so lovely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is my ex, Blake Thompson. And ladies, this is something you kind of need to know about him. It's kind of an attractive, somewhat irritating trait. That Blake is what we like to call a stress cleaner. That when he gets stressed out, he starts cleaning, which is actually a wildly attractive trait, except if you're coming home late from the bar, you've been partying with your friends, and you come home and you find Blake on a ladder at 2 a.m. with a razor blade in his hand, etching the paint off of the windows.
I remember that.
Then you realize that his stress cleaning is somewhat a passive-aggressive statement on your behavior. Just saying, everything has a downside. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, Blake Thompson.
Yes, I am a stress cleaner. I completely admit it. And that is an absolute 100% factual comment about me being on a ladder scraping paint off a window at 2 o'clock in the morning. I also might have been impaired.
Have you ever heard anybody vacuum at you in a passive-aggressive manner? Ladies, I'm just saying. But hey, he's a man who cleans. There you go. Unicorn. All right, so... See, I told you I had a good one. Okay, I'm so excited about this topic. We were running around, and then we just kind of decided just to go for it because we were cracking each other up. Because as we've been doing these podcasts, right, we find ourselves being like, you remember when that was so much easier? Remember when this was so much easier?
Remember when you used to do this in your teens and you thought, why, oh my God, why am I doing that now? And then all of a sudden...
Yeah, you find yourself doing it. And like in your 40s, there is a, somewhat beginning of a long series of humiliations and different changes that you're like, oh, that's different. You choose day drinking over night drinking because you kind of need those 8 hours of sleep. So we were kind of being like, things are different. And we're like, oh, I think it'd be fun to walk through each of our decades as our history and kind of put it a little bit in perspective. And we're on a roll.
Yes, we are absolutely on a roll because this topic's going to be juicy.
Oh, yeah. And so welcome to the Ghosts of Sex Lives Past. We're going to go back to the 90s. Blake was in high school in the early 90s. I was in high school in the mid 90s. And so now we're going to talk about our sexual and romantic dating selves as our teens. Would you like to go first or me?
Well, as we were saying earlier on, we have 3 questions.
All right, so we should respect your elders. That's what I heard you just say. We're going to go with you. You're the oldest. All right, Blake, you graduated in what year?
1991.
All right, from which high school?
I prefer not to mention that at this time.
Okay, it's apparently a protected secret. Okay, in 1991. Okay, in the late 80s, early 90s, Blake is a young sexual creature just getting into his prime dating years. All right, Blake, going back in time, way back in time.
Way back in time as the hamster wheel turns right now, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so what were you drinking?
Oh, God, everything bad. When you think about what we were drinking, it was all about Boone's Delicious Apple or Boone's Strawberry Hill.
Oh, yeah, Strawberry Hill.
Southern Comfort. Oh, God, why? God, why?
Well, Janis Joplin used to drink it. That made it somewhat romantic, right?
No. None. Anybody that says...
Said no one ever.
Anybody that says romance started with Southern Comfort really needs to reevaluate their life decisions.
Run, don't walk, doesn't it?
What else was I drinking? Yeah, Southern Comfort and Little Kings. It's a Midwestern malt liquor in little baby bottles.
Classy.
Oh, we were super classy. Little baby greening bottles, and it tasted repugnant.
All right, so who were you dating?
Anybody I could.
Not super choosy.
No, it wasn't super choosy. It's like I've mentioned, I was kind of one of the outliers in my community. So like dating me meant dating my family, and they weren't really that fond of them. So a lot of the times I was dating in secret.
Right.
Most of the time I was dating in secret or dating outside of my high school.
Like older women or just not in your particular peer group?
Like older women. I used to cruise colleges when I was 16 because I looked like I was in my early 20s.
Me too. We do have that in common, right?
Yeah.
We both looked older for our age, although you looked real close. Jailbait.
Skin of a teenager, ladies and gentlemen.
Skin of a teenager. So true. So true. Okay. And so how are you fucking? What kind of lover were you in your teens?
Oh, God. Self-centered. Let's be honest. It's like
is a teenage boy any other kind?
It's a teenage boy. It's like, I'm proud. I have an erection. Oh my God, a woman's going to touch me. Yes. Let's be honest. Like, I wouldn't call my prowess fabulous in my teens.
Just okay. All the teen comedies are true, right? Is that like the teenage boy, all they can think about is sex and while having actually zero sort of
ability or education on it, for that matter. It's like I am a child of the Midwest, where sex education for boys usually meant going to a dodgeball game.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I wish that was a joke.
Well, I mean, did you know how to did you know how to use condoms?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I did.
Who taught you, or did you just self-teach?
Self-taught.
Autodidactic condom user. Excellent.
Self-taught. Like I would drive a county over to buy condoms so no one knew.
Right. Back to the secrecy.
Yeah, back to the secrecy. Because back in that day, condoms were behind the pharmacy counter, everybody.
Right. Had to make eye contact with a pharmacist.
And like you couldn't just walk in and just grab them off the shelf and go to the counter or self-checkout. No. Condoms and any type of contraceptives were behind the counter, and you had to walk up to the old man that knew everybody in town.
Why do you think it was? Is that just part of like our Puritan like histories that we needed some sort of shame around it or some sort of public gauntlet to walk? Like
There was that, because I know most of my friends bought condoms from the gas station machine in the men's restroom.
Seems a foolproof
Because
plan.
that's a great idea, because you don't know how long they've been there.
Right, and gas station bathrooms are definitely climate controlled, right? Like they maintain within the optimal heat range for silicone.
But again, it was like I was because if I get anybody pregnant or get a disease, I was going to get beat to death.
Well, that's pretty straightforward.
It was like the silent threat in the room. So I kept the majority of my sexual activity very secret.
Well, I find it interesting that you kind of kept it secret from your family, obs, which I think is kind of a teenage reality. But you were also kind of the secret for almost all of your partners too, right?
I was.
That's got to be kind
up until my late teens, when I was like an adult per se.
Old enough for the draft. Yep.
Yeah, old enough for the draft. It's fine. Yeah.
I mean, not old enough to buy booze, but definitely old enough for the draft. You could die for your country, you just can't drink for it.
I never had that problem. I knew every place to buy booze.
Right. Okay. And may I ask how old you were when you lost your virginity consensually?
God, I can't remember. Consensually. Let's see. 13, 14?
Okay.
Yeah.
In retrospect, what would you say to your young preteen Blake?
Preteen Blake, I like sit down and actually teach him about, because again, hindsight is always 20/20, everyone. We all know that. Because everybody wants to go back and tell themselves, don't do this, don't do that, do that.
Fair.
Go back and tell them, it's like, okay, some decisions you made were pretty dicey.
Like what?
Where you were going for dating, like going to other high schools, like growing up in a small community, like our high school rivalry was huge. And if you were found out that you were dating somebody outside of your high school, it was
violently punished.
Yes.
Yes. I wonder if that has changed at all in the age of active school shootings.
I really hope some of this stuff has changed, because all I know is I remember if you had to be careful where you wore your high school jacket, depending on what part of town you were in, depending on what county you were in, depending on what city you were in, like all that stuff. You had to be careful.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with that too in West Texas, but I always assumed they were just ass backwards by nature. I didn't realize that could happen in a semi-urban situation.
It was actually worse.
Oh, well, that makes sense. I guess so. We're tribal at our core.
We were like 15 minutes from multiple larger cities. And there were outside sports rivalries. There was other rivalries because, I mean, I always thought I was coolest because, like, I was driving around in sports cars.
Right, muscle cars.
Muscle cars, yep.
Late 70s, mid 80s muscle cars.
Nope, actually nothing past 78.
Oh, okay, the good years.
All the good years. Because you're sitting there when you're in a parking lot leaning against a Trans Am, you think you are the coolest guy on the planet, especially at 16.
I guess so. I mean, sure, I'll believe that. I was never kind of a sports car kind of girl, but yes, I understand that that's.
All right, now back at you. What were you drinking?
Jack Daniels.
Oh, Jack Daniels.
Yeah, me and Jack and I got into a real abusive relationship. We don't talk no more. But yeah.
No one should talk to Jack Daniels anymore.
Jack Daniels. It was my stepfather's flavor of choice, so he never really noticed how much I drank of it. Jack Daniels, Miller Lite. Yeah.
Oh, Miller Lite. Classy.
Boone's Farm. Oh, yes. Well, that was when we had money.
Oh.
We had some money. We bought some Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill. Those were fancy. Those were fancy days.
Oh,
God. Let's see. We would go down to Mexico a lot, right? And that's where we kind of got into the fancy Coronas and margaritas and Bloody Marys and weird named things that I don't recall anymore. But yeah, I didn't drink a lot in high school. I drank a lot in junior high. I kind of got all that drinking out of my system in junior high, and so by the time I hit high school, I was actually kind of a teetotaler. We didn't drink a lot in high school.
Okay. Who are you dating / fucking?
Oh, weirdly, I did not have a lot of sex in high school. I did in junior high, and I kind of had a group of friends in high school, and we were very puppy pile touchy-feely. I would say we got naked and touched each other a lot, but I don't really remember an awful lot of actual intercourse happening in that particular crowd.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, again, junior high. And, there's a difference, right? Because, my hometown, Menard, is about 1,200 people, and that's where, like, all the crazy ass shit went down and the drinking and the, 12-year-old fucking stories, right? But by the time I went to high school, which was in the big city of San Angelo, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
I had calmed down a lot.
Right on.
I just kind of mellowed out a lot.
Because like in our teens, we weren't really. I don't think anybody was thinking. Everything was hormonal. Everything was spontaneous.
Oh, I was a different kind of teenager. I constructed an entire elaborate, detailed, step-by-step plan on how to get the fuck out of West Texas when I was in 7th grade, and I was always a girl with a plan, and so all of this extracurricular activities involving my peers just always seemed to be a way to pass the time, but I was very controlling of it because I had a goal to get out of town.
That didn't happen until my 20s.
I was a very motivated teenager, in that sense, driven, one might say. I didn't really start having a lot of fun or myself-initiated fun until I got to New York. I mean, but then again, I got to New York a little bit after I turned 17, so I was a teenager in New York. I was a teenager when you met me. I'm just going to point that out.
She likes to remind me of that every time.
I feel like it's worth. Well, I was saying that to you and I were both. We looked older, right? I've had these tits since 5th grade, and we looked older, got into places we probably shouldn't have been, but we're really jailbait for a long, long time.
Alcatraz.
What do you mean by Alcatraz?
Alcatraz, that club that was over on the in Alphabet City, the bar.
Oh God, man, I haven't thought about that in forever. Let's just move on. All right. Talking about nope, no particular memory. So let's move into our 20s.
Yes, our 20s, when we start thinking that we're growing up, we're getting older, we know things, we're making poorer life decisions than we did when we were in our teens.
I think like the transition from teens to 20s is that teens, I think sex is scary, right?
Yeah.
It is this kind of unknown thing that is secretive, hiding. I feel like that is kind of the story of teenage sex, is that you got to keep your fucking mouth shut, which means you're kind of in the dark, literally, emotionally and kind of sometimes physically.
Sex education was poor, living in the beginning of the AIDS epidemic at the time,
right?
When it's like they basically used that as the boogeyman,
right?
For any type of sexual activity in the Midwest.
Yeah. Sex can kill you, right? I remember, we're saying that, I remember telling my father, right, this frat boy of the 60s who came of age in the me generation, sexual revolution and stuff. And I was like, yeah, Dad, my generation is the first generation that has never known sex without AIDS. And he just kind of stared at me dumbfounded. And I'm like, welcome to my world, dude. Different from yours, boomer. But yeah, no, I mean, the late 80s and the 90s was the AIDS crisis, and I was acutely aware of it and scared to death of it.
Right.
And then moving to New York City, right, which was sort of kind of ground zero for the gay men's health crisis, and being in the Village and in the West Village and having a queer best friend and a lot of queer friends, it was a reality.
Yeah, in my early 20s, as Bonnie likes to remind everyone, Blake was an undercover narcotics officer.
Undercover narcotics officer.
Police officer. I had a couple badges back then, which was just entertaining everybody.
Real interesting way to spend that energy.
Yep. My early 20s, I dated someone pretty consistently, and then I moved to New York.
Sorry. New York was so much fucking fun. I hit it like a bat out of hell with my sister's ID. And it was, man, New York is a hell of a place to be young.
Yeah. That's where I started coming into my own, because like when you're thinking in your 20s, I'll start answering the questions for you. It's like I switched over from sitting there drinking Corona with lime and doing shots of Jack Daniels like I was in my right mind.
God, I forget what I drank. I know I drank whiskey. I did definitely drink Bass and Harp and Guinness.
Cider,
Snake Bites, and Black House and Jameson.
Oh God, Black House. Oh. Jägermeister.
Oh, I did not do Jägermeister. I remember I turned on my actual 21st birthday. Your friends bought me like a freaking bottle of Jägermeister. I'm like, why?
I have no idea on that one.
Oh, 20s was the decade of the drinking games, right? We played a lot of drinking games as a way to flirt. I do remember that drinking games being a real fun way to flirt and find out some, revealing information about humans.
Also, all the shots.
Shots. Drank a lot of shots in my 20s. I
Yeah.
agree.
Everybody, because someone would say, round of shots. And all of a sudden, here came a cocktail waitress with a plate full. And you're just like going, oh no. You either thought it was a great idea at the time or you just started going cringing. Because you knew. Because one, you had two thoughts in mind. Who the hell is paying for this?
Right.
And two, can I make it home without vomiting?
Well, and if you can, that's a good thing about New York City. You could totally vomit in the street. Nobody cares. Nobody stops. It was a great revealing moment for my life when I realized that I could just throw up in the streets of New York and nobody gave a shit.
You can, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you could be laying on the sidewalk, vomiting profusely into a gutter, and no one will look at you.
They give you your privacy. I respect that about New Yorkers. I give you your privacy.
Yeah. So in our early 20s and late teens for some people, it's like, yeah, who are you fucking? Each other.
True, but after, you mean you and I broke up, a few months after I turned 21. So my 20s, I was saying who I was dating in my 20s, I dated a lot of bad boys. I dated a lot of taboos. I was attracted to, no, this is a bad idea. Hello, bad idea. You're my favorite.
Yeah.
I was telling him, I was like, 20s is where I really started pushing some of those lines that I was taught that you shouldn't be pushed. Like, sure, I'll date brothers. What could be wrong? Or, hey, this is my ex-best friend's ex-boyfriend. What could be wrong with that? Hey, this is my ex-best friend's father. What could totally go wrong with that? Boss,
Cocktail waitresses.
Oh, that was all you.
That was all me.
Irish bartenders. I definitely had a thing for Irish bartenders.
You had a thing for all the pretty boy bartenders. Like, I did not meet a cocktail waitress I did not like.
That's true.
We were also talking about poor life decisions previously that cracked ourselves up. Like, sex in a bathroom was always a great idea.
Right, man. What is it about? Yeah, I mean, I get adventure and variety, right? In the exploration of public spaces. New York City is a great spot for that. There are
great spot for that. And now it's like, I don't want to get hepatitis, guy.
Yeah, I mean, back then, like having sex in a bathroom, in a public bathroom, right, seemed dangerous as opposed to, ew, gross and unhygienic, but oof, wow. And staying out all night, right? Like meeting the dawn. I remember a date of mine taking me to the World Trade Center and taking our shoes off and dancing on the dry fountain right outside of the World Trade Center back in the day, right, when the towers were still in the air, And,
wow, I did that too.
And meeting the dawn, like all these kind of sort of romantic things.
Walking across the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, for the dawn. That was also a good one. That's still a good one.
Yeah, that's still a good one.
Reasonably free. Don't die.
Yeah. But again, it's like you look at your early 20s and all the adventurous things that you're doing, thinking like this is taboo.
Right.
Like sex in the back of a car or like
sex in a taxi
cab.
I'm so sorry. I apologize to all those taxi cab drivers.
Yeah, all of my livery cab drivers and taxi cab drivers, I am so sorry.
Oh my God, Subways.
And now I'm like in your 40s and you're sitting there like thinking about this now. It's like, oh my God, you're on my hip. No.
Well, that's just it. It's like we're thinking about all these things, and it seems so much fun, and then we're like, oh, ow,
Yeah.
Man, my back just hurts thinking about it.
I know, right? And it's and like leaving a bar at 8 o'clock in the morning and being at work by 9.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember when Mother shut down. Right. Mother was this awesome gay leather bar over in the Meatpacking District, and I think 2 nights a week it was a lesbian bar called the Click Club.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had misspent a lot of our youth there. And we got word that it was closing on like a Tuesday. Like Tuesday night, we got word that it was closing. So we all decided we had to go to Mother, the last night of Mother. Woo, woo, woo. Oh, man. We did. We partied it up. That's when I got wildly inappropriate with Deborah Harry. And
yes, ladies and gentlemen, Bonnie walks up to Deborah Harry, stands right behind her, and sniffs her.
I sniffed her hair. It was so creepy, but awesome. Creepy. And I remember rolling into work the next day, and I had changed out of my leather bustier in the office hallway bathroom and come in, and man, I'm hurt. And my boss that I was maybe having an affair with at the time was like, he just sat there and laughed at me and made me stay the whole day, the fucker.
I remember I was working at Chelsea Piers at the time and waking up on the couch, like in the sports center. It's like, where am I? Oh my God, we're open and I'm passed out on this couch. ouch.
Yeah. Yeah, those and it just seems in retrospect it seems fun and well, I don't know what it seems, right? We were just young.
Yeah.
There's really no other real word for it. Young and kind of thought of ourselves as invincible, which is the best thing about it, right?
Yeah, and mid 2000s, I bounced over to LA and like spent a couple years in LA making poor life decisions.
Well, so dating changed once you turned 30. That's kind of my opinion of it. Like once my 20s were really all about adventure and variety and frankly being like honing my craft of mean. I kind of learned to cut some swaths through every taboo and figure out how to turn the tables on a lot of things. I was always into power games and I just learned to start winning them, whatever
Right.
that meant. The 30s, we were talking about this, right? Dating in your 30s, the tone of it changes.
Yeah.
In 20s, it's like, you want to? I've never tried this. Let's do it, right?
Yeah.
There's this kind of like, ha, 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 yay. And then in your 30s, it becomes like a Godfather level negotiation.
Yeah.
Make them an offer I can't refuse. It seemed to get kind of deadly serious.
Well, it's like,
quickly.
you're like all kinds of things are coming into play. Like your drinking, your kinks, your fetishes.
Yeah, that's
Like
when all those
people
things
that
kind
were
of get
like,
solidified.
hey, I graduated college, I'm starting a career, woo, family type stuff, starting to look for like, mates in their peer group.
Yeah, it was a lot of pairing up, right? I think I had 11 weddings from the age of 28 to 32. 11 weddings. That's a lot of weddings. I kind of preferred funerals, frankly. They seemed a bit more honest and a ceremony I had much more likely chance of participating in.
Yeah, and like for me, it's like in my 30s, I was in a long-term relationship at the time, like going to school and like doing like I went back to school in the 30s. And that's where my drinking refined, actually.
So what were you? All right, your 30s. What were you drinking?
Let's see, like what was I drinking? Guinness and Bullet Rye.
Solid choice.
Guinness and Bullet Rye was my go-to, like a pint of Guinness and a Bullet Rye neat. That was my staple for an entire decade, everybody.
Wow. My 30s was all about the transition from Scotch into bourbon because I got really offended by how expensive Scotch got, and so I started switching into bourbon. That was that transition.
And of course, at the time, like in my 30s, I was bouncing at 5 different bars and bartending too. So like I knew every place to go. So my drinking was super refined after a while.
So wait, were you in a long-term relationship all of your 30s?
For most
So
of
did
it.
you didn't really date much?
Nope.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, dating in my 30s, like I think I calmed down. I think I was, just straight up a crazy fucking bitch through most of my teens and 20s. And I calmed down in my 30s and, really dedicated myself to being a full-on workaholic, kind of threw myself into that particular addiction. But dating did change, right? Like it became this sort of negotiation. It became a little bit more serious in that we got into the questions about marriage and kids, right? Like usually within the first kind of moments of it. And yeah, and it also became about fetishes and the combo lock, right? Like you kind of, you did all the experimenting in your 20s and then realized that, yes, maybe in the park, not in the bathroom, kind of,
You're sitting there, it's
distinctions.
like, okay, who's getting tied up for this one? Am I on top?
Yeah.
Am I on bottom?
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing with this? And then, and you're later in your 30s, that's where it starts getting complicated.
Well, that's where like the combo lock kind of solidifies. You start realizing that what was it you said? You start realizing that sometimes you need to be like, we didn't start the fire.
Yes, it's like, okay, so for me to get off, you need to be on top. You need to sing Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire" word for word.
All right, ladies, you failed in that last stanza. Let's take it from the top. But no, I had sex where like I got those strict instructions.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, like the Godfather negotiations, right? Like strict instructions, do not deviate. They did seem to be somewhat porn inspired, right? That
Right.
that it has to be from certain angles, right? You learn like reverse cowgirl has to involve some kind of like not your left shoulder, not your right shoulder, right? Like it got
Yeah.
director level detailed. And you're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, okay.
And I'll tell you what was funny, though, the irony of it, I was on a lot of dating apps at the time, even though I was in a long-term relationship, not because I was fooling around, but because I was going to school for my counseling degrees, everybody. So we had a psychology professor in my undergrad tell us about, people that are starting to get on dating apps, especially back in the day when OkCupid was becoming big and like all the friend finders and whatnot. And some of them are asking psychological battery questions to match up with you.
So you kind of realize the psychological thought process behind some of these questions.
Yeah.
OkCupid was actually kind of infamous for it, right?
OkCupid was the biggest offender for that, where they actually had a team of psychologists develop their questionnaires.
This is how we help the FBI out every day.
Yeah.
Right? We just give them this information about us. Lovely.
Exactly. I mean, so you're going online and you're sitting there, it's like, okay, do you like this? Or do you get sad when this happens? And you're reading these, and I'm reading these. I'm like going, oh my God. And what was funny at the time, I was doing this with my partner, where she was sitting over my shoulder watching me go through these.
So you went through a online dating questionnaire with your partner there?
Yeah.
Because it was, what, homework?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a hell of a conversation.
Yeah. It was in the syllabus even.
I'm sorry. I love this
And like,
story.
I mean, that conversation was entertaining, coming home and going, hey, so I have the weirdest assignment. You have to see this.
But you were a non-traditional age student, so it doesn't sound like a bad idea.
No, it wasn't. And like we were talking about like dating, it's like I wasn't really dating, I was mentoring.
Mentor.
You know, because again, like I'm working at all these bars and I got all these young people going, oh, you work at all these bars. Oh my God, you're this, you do this, you do this. I said, okay, let me educate you.
Here's how you behave.
This is how you behave out in public.
This is so I don't have to bounce you from my bar.
This is how you order drinks. This is how you tip. This is how you flirt with a bartender. This is how you don't flirt with a bartender.
God, I remember, all those bartenders well before I was of age, right? I celebrated my birthday in the same bar, celebrated my 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st birthday, all in the same bar, 4 different bartenders. And the last one I come in, I'm like, it's my birthday. And they're like, great, congratulations, here's a shot. How old are you? And I'm like, 21. And I remember he hung his head down because he and I had kind of had, relations. And he was like, I think I kind of always knew that. I'm like, yeah. Thanks for the Jameson. Bye. Sorry.
But again, you're sitting there. It's like you were going from scotches to bourbons.
Right.
Okay. Through my 30s, my sex life was pretty pedestrian. I was in a long-term relationship. Back and forth.
I would say sex in my 30s. It was about negotiation. It is kind of where I learned, communication skills seem to be key. Mainly because, kinks and fetishes and combo locks start kind of coming into it, and you're having more than one night stands, right? And the hookup culture, it extends into months, right? And yeah, that's where I got my idea that the combo lock can be overridden with the power of new strange. But the new strange, I think, wears off about maybe like 3-4 times. And then you kind of have to go back to the combo lock and actually communicate what it is that gets you off. And sometimes I do think Dan Savage was a good influence on me, right? To be like GGG, good giving and game, and kind of, knowing what my yes, no, maybe list is, and being able to somewhat communicate what my yes, no, maybe list was. It was interesting how it changed in my 30s, because my 20s, it was really all about power games. I loved me some power games, and in my 30s, I stopped being so fucking angry and looking to hurt both myself and others, and kind of tried to at least engage and to be a little bit softer. What I do remember strongly about my 30s is that I was very time conscious. I was working all the time, right? My job was much more important than you and whatever your feelings are, right? So can we get this done? I've got a very tiny window or narrow window in which to get off, and you have like a 34 level combo lock. So if I got to start with "we didn't start the fire," that's a long fucking song, okay? Like I do it now. Do it now. Okay, go. I'm going. No, don't interrupt me. Let's. Very goal focused, I guess. Time is money. Let's move.
Then we move into the 40s. Oh my God.
Well, yeah. Now, like we had a premise as we were going to stroll down that Amnesia Lane, and then we're coming into the 40s. Like, what's different? And it is different.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I remember when I was trying to figure out if I was staying in New York or not, and I was sport dating at the time.
Sport dating, is that like sport fucking? What is sport dating? Where you're just sort of going on dates for entertainment value, but
going on dates. It's like I was trying to find, trying to see like if I was ready for a relationship, or if I was capable of a relationship at the time, as Bonnie likes to put it, flex emotionally unavailable.
I mean, you were for a solid decade or so, but it's fine.
Oh yeah, but it's some of the people I dated, it's like I dated some really interesting individuals, and it's like and at the time no one was looking for relationships. That was the one thing. It's It's like, no, I'm not looking for anything long term, but just looking for right now. Let's see what happens type thing.
Okay. That I've lost that, and I actually think that might be the key to successfully dating in your 40s, as opposed to, and that may be the leftovers from dating in your 30s, right? There's something, dating in your 30s seems so goal oriented, right? Because that's when like big life choices, or at least for cisgendered women, right? That's when like kids or no kids, this is the decade where that shit's gotta be solved, right? Kids or no kids, marriage no marriage, right? And so a lot of goal-oriented dating. And I was always kind of on the outside of that, and so I feel like I could just kind of like hopped into the HOV lane. But also kind of, I was dating to fit men into the very narrow window of time in which I allowed them into my life, right? So I guess I was in some ways hyper controlling of that situation. And maybe the going back to that sense of play as opposed to that, maybe like, I don't know, maybe I learned something. Maybe the way to like go to dating in your 40s is to, maybe let's not talk about Mr. Forever. Let's talk about like Mr. Next 10 years. Maybe let's just see where
things go.
Dating for the experience. That was something I did in my 20s, and I lost it in my 30s. Maybe that's something to go back to.
And that was the thing. Like all the like with the people that I was dating, it was all communicated. Where it's like, okay, we're not sure where we're going, we're not sure what we're doing, because it's like everyone I was dating was either in their late 30s or early 40s,
right?
And like there's a lot of uncertainty about it. I don't know what the rest of my life to look like. Okay, it's like, okay, well, let's go hang out. It's like, okay, I mean,
yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I thought my early 40s was like some of my funnest dating.
Your early 40s?
My early 40s was like, just, you forgot about all the hang-ups. Not all the hang-ups, but like all the worry. It's like, oh, said, let's just live in the here and now for a moment.
Which is kind of a throwback to the 20s, at least it was for me, right?
Yeah, but also you're educated and you're communicating, something you didn't do in your 20s. I know I didn't do it in my 20s, but it's just going out and just enjoying another human's company and just having fun with it. Sex happened, great. If it didn't, okay. I just went out and had a great time with a human. That was awesome.
Yeah, I mean I'm trying to figure like what it is I'm trying to say. Like, yeah, I get that. I'm not quite sure that your flippancy is accurate, because this is also a stance you've professed in our flirting conversation as well, that it's totally free, except it's kind of not. I think there's a real healthy take there, but I also think that there's no lightheartedness in your 40s at some level, because you're kind of already on some level have a U-Haul package of issues that just comes U-Haul luggage, right? Everybody comes with issues. Everybody comes with baggage.
Everybody has their hefty bag.
Yeah, hefty bag. All right, I said U-Haul, you had said hefty bag. All right, I think we both have size queen issues, but okay. Yeah, that like, and the idea that you're not maybe engaging with a malleable, still forming human like we were in our 20s, and we're just sort of bumping up against each other and impacting each other that way. And this way we're kind of more the epoxy has somewhat hardened and it's about getting to know the layers of someone. I find that fun. I've enjoyed dating in my 40s more than I ever did. I find men over 40 wildly more interesting, because you're kind of getting past usually getting past some of the walls.
Men in their 40s, or I mean, like I find it for myself, like my 40s, like really getting to know me better.
Yeah, that's what I find interesting about it, is that there is a chance to get to know them better.
Yeah, it's like, and that's through like just personal experience, therapy, like all the things. Just getting to like know myself better and know what my needs are, know what my desires are, know what my wants are, know what they aren't.
Yeah.
It's where like as we put it, like since our podcast is about dating in your 40s, it's like, what does that look like now?
Well, the thing I was not expecting about dating in your 40s that I didn't realize is that the combo lock changes. Oh my dear Lord. Yeah, I will let you speak for the cishet men out there, but I was not prepared for my body to change, and basically how I like sex in my body changed. How I used to be able to get off suddenly doesn't work anymore. Holy fucking shit. That was not prepared for that. That seems unfair. Like somebody rekeyed the combo lock and didn't tell me.
And it just it happened by happenstance, not by anything else.
It just seemed to happen kind of overnight from one lover to the next. And I'm like, well, shit. That used to work, and now, wow, I got my body got a lot more complicated, and that didn't seem fair. I mean, it's fun, but I had to, kind of reinvest in a whole bunch of new different toys to relearn how this 40-year-old body, likes to get its freak on. And that was different. In the past, the body seemed to really kind of follow along with wherever the mind wanted to go. And now the mind may be willing, but the body's like, that's not how that works. And you're like, oh,
Yeah, for
shit.
guys in their 40s, let's be honest, fellas, like our plumbing does not work as well as it used to.
Hydraulics are a
Yeah,
thing.
hydraulics are a thing when you're 20s. It's like, ha ha, my teens and 20s. Look at me, I have the North Pole between my legs, and now it's like, oh my God, it's not working, and you got to go to the little blue pill, and you try to wonder. It's like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, things are different, and they're not bad. It's just different, and I was not prepared for the different. And it kind of requires a mind change and a reinvestment in yourself. The idea that you change and you feel like I mean, I've known myself for 43 years. How can I surprise myself? Haha, guess what? The combo lock changes. And wasn't that startling? I didn't realize that. It's honestly my 40s. Sex in my 40s was the first time I ever really kind of felt insecure, where I had to question, like, because my body was different, and I didn't know, if I don't know how to get myself off, how can I expect anybody else to know that? And then I started to be like, well, I mean, am I actually any good at this?
Right, and it's like that's the other thing about your 40s, like in your 20s, teens, 20s, and 30s. There's a certain level of certainty that you have. And now in your 40s, you're questioning that. You're like unsure. And that then a whole new level of uncertainty pops up where you're like, oh my God, am I good at this? Or does this person think I'm good at this?
Well, and because it requires, maybe more systems being online than it used to, right? Letting the hormones take over. That's the fun about the teens and the 20s. And, maybe letting the mind and the creativity kind of take over. But now it involves more systems online, which is about substances stop working the way they used to. And
like with men, it's like sometimes testosterone levels start dropping. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you're like, you walk by something that used to turn you on. And now it's like, oh God, what just happened?
So I have an uncomfortable question. It's wildly nosy, but I want to ask it. We're kind of at that time. Are you ready for it?
Yo.
What is something that used to turn you on that no longer does, right? Like what is a combo lock change?
Oh, damn, that's a good one.
We gotta take some time.
What used to turn me on, I mean, just like the thought of sex turned me on. Like, just, like it was like, I'm gonna get some. Now it's not like that at all. It's planning and wondering, okay, what does turn me on? Because now it's, again, as we talked about in earlier episodes, combo locks change. And sometimes those numbers get longer and longer and longer and longer and longer.
Right, it's no longer Billy Joel. It's this tarantula costume.
It's like, okay, you got to wear this tarantula costume and you got to hold this lantern just at this point.
And then punch me right here.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, the thought of, it's like, hey, any sex is good sex, and you realize, no, it's not.
Yeah, right. Like the sex is like pizza, even if it's bad, it's still.
It's
pizza,
and and I'm like in my 40s. It's like I realized it's like, no, it's like I want
more.
I want more, and I mean more. I want some emotion behind it. Like I want some passion behind it.
A connection. Like more systems need to be online.
Yeah, more systems need to be online. This is also this is where kinks and fetishes come in. It's like, it's like, when you look at your partner, it's like, what are you finding attractive? And it's like, and it could be anything.
Communication seems to be a bit more key, right? Like you kind of have to say things out loud. Still be up for the adventure and exploration part of it. Spelunking, but yeah, it doesn't. It's not as automatically intuitive as it used to be, and it makes me wonder if it was intuitive, or if it's or if there was just a lot of dissociation.
Because, I mean, I'll be honest, there's sometimes I've had bad sex and it's my fault. Because, things weren't working well. I wasn't, I wasn't turned on by my partner. Just by insert said, it could be the scene, it could be the position, it could be the chemistry. I mean, just like a combination of them all.
Yeah.
Or again, it's like when we talked about a moment ago, it's like, am I good at this still? And it's like, am I Because now it's like all those questions come into play that you ignored in your teens. It's like, am I pleasing my partner? Am I good at this? Did she orgasm? I mean,
But did she really?
did she really?
Did I sell that well enough? All right, yeah. Man, this getting older thing, man.
Yeah.
It's not for wusses.
No, it's not. And it's like, and like asking these questions and revisiting things, it's absolutely okay. Don't beat yourself up for it.
Oh, I mean, you can if that's your thing, but
I mean,
it's
if
not. That's
that's
not
your
gonna
specific kink, beat away.
beat away.
Have your own safe word, everybody. But
Especially with yourself.
But exploring these things, it's like, how is your combo luck changing? How are you changing?
How are you changing? And if you haven't changed yet, ooh, I'm gonna give you a heads up. It might happen. That I wish somebody had told me. I maybe I probably wouldn't have believed them because I tend to disbelieve the you'll know when you're older kind of thing. But I changed emotionally when I went in my 30s. I'm grateful for my 30s. I did calm down. I started giving myself a break on things. I started being a lot kinder to myself in certain ways. Uh, Emotionally and psychologically, the 40s has really been about my body, right? And having the body change on you. And the things that used to work don't work no more. And having kind of the courage to find new things that work is it's a little startling when sort of your tried and true bread and butter fantasy that you've been
Right.
that you've been lovingly polishing since your early teens just suddenly don't work no more. You're like,
Yeah.
"Fuck."
And it's out the window.
Yeah, and you're like, oh well, okay.
Or things that used to excite you. Yeah, things that used to excite you and that you looked forward to now are like, no.
Over it.
Yeah, no. It's like, let's try something new. Let's try something different. Okay, hang that trapeze on the ceiling, everybody. I mean,
Let me just make sure you use a stud.
yeah.
A stud finder. Sorry. Bad joke. Dad joke. Anyway. Yeah, that was I was not prepared for that. That was startling.
Yeah.
About the 40s.
It's like, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't prepared for it either. I was not prepared for it.
I was prepared for the drinking thing, right? Like, I mean, Blake and I talk a lot about like being professional drinkers, but we've really slowed down a lot. I would say it kind of hit my peak somewhere in my early 30s, and I've really cut down a lot. I don't mainly those hangovers. Woo, you just can't shake them off, and
That's the other thing. In your 40s, no one wants to be hungover going to work.
dear Lord, it must be hungover. Period.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to wake up in the morning. It's like, no, it's not. And it's sitting there. It's like, am I doing a walk of shame or it's a stride of pride? I stopped for brunch. I mean, things you did in your 20s and 30s were fine, but in your 40s, you're like going, no, I can't,
No, I can't.
or I won't.
Well, it was somewhere in my late 30s where I realized that if I drank too much past a certain point, if I was passing out, right, if I was so drunk I needed to go to sleep, I stopped being able to pass out. I would fall asleep for maybe like 15 minutes and then I'm wide the hell awake, still drunk with a headache and cannot sleep. And that is a real special hell. Because my stupid human drunk trick is I can replay in surround sound every stupid thing I just said the night before. Though, you only have to have one or two of those to be like, maybe I need to tone this stuff down.
Yeah, like I was mentioning to Bonnie earlier, accidental rallies when you go out with your friends and your friends are all like going, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock, everybody's yelling, got to get home to the kids, got to get home, do this, got to go to bed, got to be up early, and you're sitting there on that teetering verge. It's like going, yeah, I'm good for a few more.
I'm ready to go. Come on, guys.
Come on, guys. And they're like, no. They're tapping their wrist. Like, you're like, oh no. And then then you go, I have to go home and I'm wide awake and I want to go out and play. Do I go out and play or do I adult?
You're adult, really. It's rarely the bad choice. And it doesn't mean that like exciting things don't happen. It just means that you stop doing the kind of dumb shit that you used to. So do you have an uncomfortable question for me or do I get to skate?
Actually, you have answered a lot of uncomfortable questions tonight.
I have, really?
Yeah, you have.
Go me!
Go you! We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, so This one ran a little bit long, everybody, but hey.
I don't think we're fine. It was a little bit more fun until that last part. Thank you for being with us in our stroll down Amnesia Lane, the ghosts of sex lives past and the ghosts of dating lives past.
And also, when you're doing what we just did tonight, give yourself some grace, everybody.
I like it. I think it's important to kind of remember who you were and how you gotten here. It's harder to admit why I'm here. But yeah.
All right, everybody. I think it's about time for that refill.
Damn straight.